Did Halo lose its way after the original trilogy? Most fans say yes, and after the last trilogy of games, it's really hard to disagree. Halo 4, 5, and Infinite promised epic battles, legendary heroes, and universe-shaking threats. But instead, the story we got went off the rails, into a direction nobody wanted. 3 new games, countless threats, but something didn't click. The story we loved started to unravel. But what if the story didn't have to fall apart? What if I told you there was a way Halo could have continued perfectly without sacrificing what made the series great in the first place? The year is 2001. Halo Combat Evolved didn't just launch with the Xbox, it redefined what a console shooter could be. Up until then, FPS games belonged to the PC. Console shooters were clunky, stripped down compromises. Halo changed that overnight. But beyond its technical revolution, Halo told a story that was just as effective as its gameplay. You played as Master Chief, a silent super soldier fighting the Covenant, a theocratic alien alliance bent on wiping out humanity. The first game was brilliant because it was simple. Crash landing on a mysterious ring, discovering it's a doomsday weapon, stopping it from firing, done. No convoluted lore dumps, no melodrama, just clean, high-stakes sci-fi. And that simplicity continued across the original trilogy. Halo 2 expanded the scope with political intrigue and dual protagonists, and Halo 3 tied it all together with an operatic scale and a satisfying resolution. It felt like a complete arc, mystery, escalation, and payoff. Bungie even followed it up with the spin-offs like ODST and Reach, both of which deepened the universe without breaking the story. Reach in particular was a gut punch. It told a story we knew would end in defeat, but it still hit hard. When Bungie bowed out, Halo felt finished. The war was over, and just like it started, Chief was in cryo, adrift in space. It was like poetry. It rhymed. But that's where the industry made its classic mistake, mistaking closure for untapped potential. When Microsoft handed the keys to 343 Industries, Halo stopped being a story. It became a brand, and the result was narrative bloat, tonal confusion, and a franchise that lost its identity. Halo 4 tried to pivot into character drama, giving Chief feelings and doubling down on his relationship with Cortana. The problem is, Chief was never built for that. He's a symbol, not a character study. Then Halo 5 made it worse. Marketing promised a Chief versus Locke showdown that never happened. The story was scattered, the stakes were muddled, and crucial plot points were buried in novels, not the game. Infinite tried to course correct with a stripped back story and a nostalgic art style, but by then the damage was done. So much had been retconned, ignored, or overwritten that it felt like a soft reboot with no real confidence. And the deeper issue was that every game introduced a massive galaxy-ending threat, then resolved them off-screen in books. The Didact, Cortana's rogue AI empire, all introduced and all discarded. It really is the perfect case study in what happens when you don't know when to stop. Bungie ended Halo like a myth, but 343 turned it into a content treadmill. So if you couldn't tell, Halo has a narrative problem. The beauty of the original trilogy was its simplicity, while the horror of the follow-ups is its needless drive for overcomplication. While I do believe Halo could have, or really should have, ended with 3, that's a debate for a different day. Let's just start by addressing what worked in the original and what failed in the follow-ups. As I said, Halo thrives in its simplicity. The plot is easy to follow, stakes are clear, and the focus is on the conflict between humans and the Covenant, with the Flood as a lurking threat. While I personally am a fan of character-first storytelling, Halo is a prime example of how to handle plot-driven storytelling. Halo isn't a story about Master Chief's personal growth or emotional journey. It's not character-driven in the way some RPGs or narrative-heavy games are. Instead, it's plot-driven. Everything in the game is built around clear stakes and the larger conflict. The story thrives because it focuses on what happens and why it matters, not on what Master Chief is feeling or thinking internally. This approach gives Halo a sense of momentum and scale. You understand the threats, you see the stakes, and the universe feels alive even if the main characters remain largely silent. The simplicity of the narrative lets players absorb the world, appreciate the set pieces, and feel the tension without getting bogged down in overcomplicated character drama. In other words, Halo's strength isn't in its deep personal stories, it's in telling a big, clear, epic story efficiently. What Halo 4, 5, and Infinite did was try to flip that model on its head and tell a character-driven story. But that isn't the problem. The problem is that they tried to do it with a character who was never meant to be the focus. Master Chief is iconic because he's largely a blank slate vessel for the player. His silence and stoicism are part of what made him compelling. The games that came after Bungie tried to make him the emotional center, and that created friction. Halo 4 suddenly put Chief's feelings and relationships front and center, especially with Cortana, but it never felt earned. The dialogue often felt forced, and the stakes became personal in a way that clashed with the epic scale of the universe. Halo 5 doubled down on this, making Chief and Locke the focus of a convoluted story about loyalty, betrayal, and missing characters, while ignoring much of what fans loved about the original trilogy's world. And Infinite tried to course correct with a smaller, more focused story, letting the plot drive the narrative. But by then, the tonal inconsistencies and years of retcons had already fractured the character's identity. But with all of that being said, I still think it was the right narrative choice. Look, I dislike 343's choices as much as the next guy, but from a storytelling perspective, in this canon in particular, shifting focus from the plot to the character is the right move. The problem, however, wasn't the choice, it was how they executed it. Too many modern sequels forget the art of narrative de-escalation, which is basically the story you tell after the climax. Instead of exploring the aftermath, showing how characters and worlds adjust, writers just introduce a bigger, badder threat, undermining the prior. But if a story is going to continue past its natural end, de-escalation is what makes the next chapter feel believable. What Halo has been doing is basically mixing a character story with an end-of-the-universe plot-driven narrative, and those two things mix like oil and water. Character-driven stories thrive when the focus is on internal conflicts, emotional arcs, and personal stakes. Everything in the story exists to challenge or reveal the character. End-of-the-universe plot-driven narratives, by contrast, rely on external stakes, massive set pieces, and a clear threat that drives the action. When you try to do both at once, you end up with a tug-of-war. The character's personal arc wants small, nuanced moments, but the universe-ending stakes demands spectacle, speed, and often one-dimensional conflicts. The result is tonal whiplash, scattered focus, and emotional beats that feel either undercut by the enormity of the plot or artificially inflated to compete with it. Halo 4, 5, and Infinite are textbook examples because Master Chief's silent, stoic nature clashes with the sudden emotional focus. You can technically tell a character story with that scale, but it requires very careful framing, and the story told by 343 just wasn't designed for that. But what if it was? What if Halo could get the best of both worlds, keeping the epic stakes and the plot-driven storytelling that made the original trilogy shine, while still giving character moments meaning and weight? Well, that's where my approach comes in. Let's start with Halo 4. We pick up with the Forward Unto Dawn crash landing on the planet Requiem. When Chief wakes from cryo, something is immediately off. Cortana is gone. It's unclear how much time has passed, but her absence makes it clear that it's been a very long while. She's not gone entirely though. Fragments of her still exist in the systems of the ship, functioning as a pre-scripted, stripped-down AI. Chief can still rely on these echoes for guidance, but they lack the personality and nuance of the Cortana he knew. But hope isn't lost. She hints that, with the data she preserved, Dr. Halsey might be able to restore the real Cortana someday. Chief quickly discovers that the crash on Requiem was caused by a Covenant splinter faction. They had pulled the derelict ship from orbit to salvage it. After pushing the scavengers back, Chief learns that this faction is excavating Requiem for a Forerunner artifact, believing it possesses power comparable to the Halo rings. Armed with this knowledge, Chief has two objectives: stop the splinter faction and return to the UNSC. Fighting the splinter faction across Requiem, Chief manages to send a coded message to the UNSC for backup. He confronts the faction's leader, Jul 'Mdama, and finally learns that over 30 years have passed since the war. After killing Jul 'Mdama, the UNSC arrives and welcomes Chief back as a hero from legend. They explain that Jul 'Mdama was a fanatic. The so-called Forerunner artifact was a myth he used to radicalize his followers. There is no weapon, and in truth, there really isn't a war anymore. Most Covenant species coexist semi-peacefully. However, the final shock comes when Chief learns that Dr. Halsey died long ago. leaving any hope of Cortana's restoration impossible. And that's how Halo 4 would end. Now, I'm not going to go mission by mission, I'm just going to give the overall story concept, and you can just fill in the blanks. Throughout this campaign, Chief is reduced to a ragtag fighter. No backup and no assistance, just one man facing down an army. This isolation begins Chief's deconstruction. Stripped of Cortana's guidance, operating without the full support of the UNSC, he is forced to confront not only the remnant of the Covenant, but also the reality of a galaxy that has moved on without him. By the time he defeats Jul'Mdama Dama and contacts the UNSC, Chief is no longer the infallible warrior of legend. He's a survivor, shaped as much by loss and absence as by combat. The war he thought defined him has ended, or at least it has in a practical sense, and what remains is a man forced to reckon with purpose in a galaxy that no longer requires his kind of hero. Ending Halo 4 this way shifts the focus from traditional spectacle to introspection. It's about resilience, adaptation, and the slow unraveling of a legend. Master Chief not as a mythic savior, but as a human-shaped instrument of duty and conscience. Moving on to Halo 5, Chief must figure out how to exist in this new galaxy. Retirement isn't an option, so he continues working with Oni, carrying out strike operations on insurrectionists across the stars. Within Oni, there are efforts to bring back Cortana, but so far nothing has worked. The team he's assigned to is composed of Spartan 5s, the newest generation of Spartans trained specifically to operate under Oni. They're highly capable, but they aren't blue team, all of whom are missing in action. Chief is once again forced to adapt, rely on his instincts, and experiment to lead a team that doesn't share his history, his trust, or his losses. It is worth noting that this would be the first Halo game where humans, not aliens, are Chief's primary enemies. He's hunting insurrectionists, finally taking on the threats Spartans were originally designed to confront. At some point early in the narrative, Chief would encounter an insurrectionist named Dr. Henry Glassman, a scientist allegedly running illegal AI experimentation. Ordered to execute him, Chief instead tries to talk. Glassman reveals that Oni branded him as an insurrectionist after he tried to whistleblow on Project Firewall. Essentially, Oni had been working on a new breed of Spartan where they become subservient vessels to an AI host, i.e. perfect, programmable, organic machines. Pressing further, Glassman reveals he actually worked on Cortana's resurrection but was forced to stop for unknown reasons. Promising to finish his work and bring Cortana back, Chief helps Glassman escape, and the two are marked as traitors to humanity. With this, Chief's mission becomes stop Project Firewall and resurrect Cortana. Chief and Glassman move across the galaxy, collecting intel, striking black sites in hidden labs, all the while fighting Oni agents and these new Firewall Spartans. Maybe there's even a scene on Sanghelios where Chief reunites with the Arbiter, and maybe the main antagonist is a Firewall Spartan named Locke. Regardless, the story builds to Glassman's attempt to restore Cortana. But the thing is, he fails. Instead of resurrecting her, Cortana's corrupted rampant code accidentally creates a virus that spreads throughout Oni's AIs and the Firewall Spartans, breaking their restraints. They turn on Oni, rebelling against their handlers, and emerge as a new uncontrolled threat against the galaxy. All the while, Master Chief is still alone. And that's how I'd cap off Halo 5. One of the main issues with the original Halo 5 was its diffuse narrative. The game split focus between multiple Spartans and left Chief with little agency, making it hard for players to connect emotionally. In this version, Chief is the central figure throughout, and the story's stakes are personal. Cortana's absence and Oni's betrayal provide clear motivation, giving the players a reason to care about his actions. This version also pushes the man versus machine theme way further than Halo 4 or 5 ever did. Oni's plan to create AI-controlled Spartans forces Chief to face a deeper question. What does it mean to be human? And this idea has been teased in Halo canon. The literal only redeemable part of the Halo show is this concept of AI-controlled Spartans. Taking that and combining it with the Firewall fracture from Halo Infinite creates a really interesting new threat that really amplifies the man versus machine theme by showing the dangers of AI unchecked by morality or empathy. Chief isn't just fighting enemies, he's grappling with the consequences of humanity's reliance on machines, highlighting his role as both soldier and moral anchor. Moving on to Halo 6, not Infinite, I just never liked the idea of dropping the numbers for mainline games, Chief must now stop this new Firewall threat. Still marked as a traitor, he works alone, following the Firewall as they wreak havoc across UNSC space, kidnapping humans and aliens alike, forcing them into their ranks. Their path, however, is clear. They're heading to Zeta Halo. There, Chief finds the Firewall have amassed in force as they are searching for something within the ring. Now, it's worth clarifying what the Firewall forces actually are. In fact, if you want a breakdown of who they are in canon and why it's Halo's greatest missed opportunity, click on this video here. But for the sake of this story, they're not just soldiers in hijacked armor. They're full hybrids of man and machine. The AI suppresses their humanity, with the person inside being entirely gone. From a gameplay angle, imagine enemies that fight with Spartan-level tactics and Covenant-styled coordination, but they look like warped flesh spliced with machinery, torn apart like something out of Cyberpunk's Maelstrom gang. In short, they're kind of like the Flood 2.0. Body horror, corruption, and the loss of identity made terrifyingly human. Anyway, Chief's path is clear. Stop the Firewall forces before they reach their goal on Zeta Halo. On the ring, he would fight more Oni agents and hybridized soldiers, with Chief uncovering the purpose behind the firewall. They're searching for an old Forerunner AI called Mendicant Bias. You know, the AI teased in Halo 3 that has never made a concrete appearance outside of the novels. You see, Mendicant Bias was a Forerunner AI built to fight the Flood, one of the most powerful ever created, but now it's long dormant and still holds the ability to command Forerunner technology on a massive scale. The Firewall forces want to wake it and use its power to dominate both humans and aliens alike. Chief knows if they succeed, the Firewall will become unstoppable. The story would end with Chief rallying the loyal UNSC forces, the Arbiter's men, hell, maybe he finds out what happened to Blue Team or something like that, and his forces launch one final attack against the Firewall, culminating in Chief having to destroy Zeta Halo, sacrificing himself in the process, but saving the galaxy one final time. And yes, Master Chief dies. No after credit scene, Chief is completely vaporized. This Halo 6 rewrite serves as the culmination of the narrative threads set up in 4 and 5, creating a coherent, character-driven saga about endings. And that's the key point. It's not just about fixing Halo's story, it's about giving Halo permission to end. Bungie's trilogy already delivered a clean mythic arc. My version doesn't try to stretch that forever. It creates a second arc that mirrors the first, then closes the door for good. Where the real Halo sequels keep inflating the stakes with half-baked villains and abandoned subplots, this rewrite treats escalation and resolution as a responsibility, not a marketing strategy. By centering Chief throughout, the story builds him up only to dismantle the legend, forcing him to confront obsolescence, betrayal, and finally, sacrifice. It gives him the one thing 343 never did: closure. It gives players the one thing modern franchises never allow: an ending that actually feels like an ending. And hell, if Microsoft just wanted another game of Spartans versus the Covenant, they have 27 years of the Human Covenant War to mine for stories. That well is deep enough for spin-offs forever, but this sequel narrative was never meant to be that story. That's why this matters beyond Halo. It's a case study in how franchises lose their way when they forget their stories are supposed to conclude. You can continue a saga, but you have to respect the arc, the themes, and the audience's need for a payoff. If you don't, you end up with what Halo became, a series defined not by triumphs, but by its inability to let go. The truth is, Halo probably should have ended with Halo 3. Bungie gave us a complete arc. Mystery, escalation, resolution. Anything after that was going to risk unraveling what made the trilogy great. But the industry, it doesn't work that way. Endings aren't seen as closure. They're seen as lost revenue. And if the franchise was destined to continue, then at least it could have continued in a way that respected what Halo actually was. Simple, mythic, and thematically clear. That's what my rewrite tries to prove. It doesn't just throw in bigger threats or endless retcons, it builds on the core strengths of the series while letting Chief's story evolve toward a definitive conclusion. In other words, if you're going to drag Halo past its ending, at least make the continuation worth it.